this can't be.
Tropius for me is kind of synonymous with disappointment. I know that might sound really mean, and it kind of is, but I'm also not wrong. Growing up, I always assumed that Tropius would be really great in competitive Pokemon. But now that I actually play competitive Pokemon, I realize that he is just really underwhelming at best. So today I wanted to show him the love that Game Freak never did, and I want to buff him and make him better and more viable, specifically within the context of Gen 9 singles. In all of my past videos with the same theme, Lapras, Snorlax, and Mega Garchomp, they either had a good start in their debut generation or had an interesting stat spread and abilities. But do you want to know what tier Tropius was in his debut generation? He was NU, like automatically NU. He had a pretty common set of Swords Dance, Hidden Power Flying, Earthquake, Synthesis, and/or Whirlwind and Leech Seed. You might be thinking, oh, that's not bad, all of those are great moves. And you're right, independently, Swords Dance and Earthquake would actually be very threatening. Of course, that would be if Tropius didn't have a 68 based physical attack stat. For comparison, Yanmega, Dunsparce, and Moripeko have a higher attack stat than him, the giant dinosaur. This isn't a Pokemon though that I can say I got no buffs at all across the generations. But what I can say is that those buffs did little to nothing for him in the long run. In Gen 4, it got Dragon Dance and Solar Power. Solar Power makes it so that in Sunny Day it has a 1.5 boost in his special attack, while losing 1/8 of his HP each turn, sort of like a built-in life orb. But again, I'm sorry for bringing this up, but literally who cares if his special attack is already so low? And as for Dragon Dance, probably the best Dragon type move ever in my opinion. That's great, but he can't really benefit from it like that because for the longest time he didn't have a good physical grass type move, and again, his physical attack is very low. It's only now in Gen 9 that he has moves like Solar Blade and Trailblaze, but now it's far too late. The power creep has done its damage, and currently it resides in ZU even after getting all of those minor buffs that should be significant to any other Pokemon. And as of me writing this in April, he's not even one of the top Pokemon in ZU, which makes sense when we take into consideration who those top threats are. Several of them threaten Tropius, that being Muck, Hisuian Sneasler, and Hisuian Avalugg. It's time to accept that Tropius is meant to fade into obscurity, but that's where I come in. I'm here to give Tropius a little makeover. My goal is to make him more viable in Pokemon in Gen 9 singles, while still having his sets be believable, as in not completely over the top. And also make sure to subscribe or else Game Freak will give Charizard a new Mega Evolution for the next Pokemon game. And keep ignoring Flygon. But this was kind of difficult, since Tropius' stats make it really hard to love him in the first place. There was specifically a very important choice, which was, am I going to change its typing? It's no secret that Grass Flying is a cool typing for casual players, but a terrible typing in competitive Pokemon. Tropius has weaknesses to Poison, Flying, Rock, Fire, and a quadruple weakness to Ice. That's fantastic. It's just great. I started to play around trying to minimize the bad aspects of his grass flying typing. Like for example, I thought, what about Thick Fat? That's a good ability. Venusaur has it, except no, it actually doesn't help. Because even though it does get rid of his fire type weaknesses, he would still keep his ice weakness, because it's a quadruple weakness, so he would still be weak to it. Well, here's the thing. This is my 4th video in the series of making Pokemon more viable, and there's been one constant thing that people want, and that's for me to be more loyal to the thematic aspect of the Pokemon. So I was stuck in a difficult position because I was trying to stay loyal to it, but those thematics that I was trying to stay loyal to were really holding him back and ultimately kind of making him a bad Pokemon. I did decide to keep his grass flying type, and since it has a poor defensive typing, I'm really going all in on its offensive. So first, its stats. It has a 99 base HP, 68 base attack, 83 base defenses, special attack at 72, a special defense of 87, and a speed of 51. That's a total of 460. I already joked about how no stat is above 100, but that's genuinely insane. So it's more or less a blank slate in the sense that its stat spread is really bland. We can kind of interpret this however we want then. So for my other Pokemon, I've kept their base stat total but rearranged it so that it would make more sense competitively. But we can't do this for Tropius because his base stat total, it just needs a bit of a buff. It needs to be more impressive. 460 is not enough. Tropius is a huge monster, so I don't feel like that 51 base speed is enough. Therefore, I think that we should elevate it to a solid 110. Not too dramatic, as there are faster Pokemon like Iron Valiant, Superior, or Tapu Koko. But he does pass the benchmark of 100, so it is significant. Next, I want to boost his physical attack stat to a 125, since I feel like he looks like he could cause a lot of damage. And then we can look at his other stats. He's kind of a huge beast. He's not a frail little guy. So I feel like it's appropriate to boost his physical defense stat to a 100, his HP to a 115, and there you go. Next, its ability. I decided on one of my favorite abilities / one of my favorite genre of abilities, and Aerialate. Aerialate, which is fun fact, not spelled how it's pronounced, turns normal type moves into flying type moves. It gives the user a 30% increase in power to those moves, and additionally they get stab. So I decided to give them the moves Extreme Speed, Roost, and Defog. This would mean that Extreme Speed would effectively do 156 damage, and if you chose to Terra, Extreme Speed would do 234 damage. And Roost is great because, I think literally any Pokemon would love a good recovery move. And Defog is amazing since hazard removal moves are pretty much a must on any team. So giving him that would make him far more valuable and give players a reason to use him beyond his offensive capabilities. So you might be saying, is that it? Dude, we're just gonna give him 3 good moves? And honestly, yeah, because Tropius, like I said, already has some good moves, as Game Freak has given him some small buffs here and there, like I said. Its problem was really its stats, and its typing, of course. For example, it already has access to U-Turn, Trail-Based, Dragon Dance, Swords Dance, and Solar Blade for a good stab grass type move, and even moves like Dragon Hammer or Double Edge, which would go great with Aerialate. So for example, we could do a combination of Dragon Dance, Extreme Speed, Roost, and U-Turn, or Defog, Roost, Double Edge, and Swords Dance. Whatever you want, really. We haven't gotten a Pokemon with Aerialate since Gen 6, and that's 11 years ago. So I think it would be nice to finally have a non-Mega Pokemon with this ability. Although with the new upcoming game, maybe we'll get a new Pokemon like this, fingers crossed. Overall, I think that this would be a really fun Pokemon to use, and although I have been really harsh on its poor defensive typing, at the end of the day, we still can Terra, so there will always be that. I think that this is a great version of Tropius that is pretty loyal to maybe what a non-competitive player thinks Tropius might be capable of. Not this frail excuse of a Pokemon that Game Freak made. Still to this day, I don't understand why they made Tropius this bad, but I think it comes down to the fact that not every Pokemon is meant to be competitively viable. Some are meant to just be fun to use in a playthrough, but that's why this series is a lot of fun. These hypothetical situations is what Child Me thought using Tropius would be like. I remember specifically catching one and thinking, wow, that's not a lot of damage even after leveling him up. So now we know why.